Hello and welcome back. I'm Micah. As always, I'm joined by Craig. How are we doing, mate?
Doing well. Thank you very much.
Good. And we are also joined by Jer from The View. How are we doing, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. Good to have you on. So, obviously, we
Thanks.
took 2 weeks off because Christmas time. So, let's enjoy the Oxford 4-0, Stoke 2-0, and Derby 1-0 review. Craig, let's hear it off, first of all, from you.
Well, emphatic win over Oxford, which kind of expected um, to pull that one out. Stoke were a very good win away from home because it's not the best of grounds that we go to, is it? And tonight, well, scrappy game, but another good win.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, what about you, mate?
The Oxford game, given the home form so far this year and how we're playing at home, kind of exactly the result we would expect it to have. We're kind of looking for an emphatic performance after the draw with Preston. I think we all wanted this side to be let off the leash a little bit and see what they could actually do if they were let go. I think we saw it could have been 6 or 7 against Oxford easily. Could have been more than 4, but a very emphatic game. Nice to see the front three getting on the scoreline as well. They're carrying the brunt of the burden this year for us in front of goal. So yeah, exactly what we've expected. Oxford not doing too bad, but it was a result that we would have hoped for. So yeah, that was great. The tricky ones were the two after that, which were the two away games, given our relatively poor away record comparative to the other promotion chasing sides. I think going into the Stoke game, we had the 8th best away record in the league, which isn't good enough if you're going to get promoted. But we've sorted that out. The last two games now seem to show that we maybe have turned a bit of a corner. And we definitely play differently in the away games. We did an analysis on my channel and we looked at um, how Leeds play, the speed of play, and the chances that they create home and away. And the myth whether we just can't break down low blocks away from home. And what we looked at from the away games was actually more teams than not, when we were away from home, had more shots against us than they did in Ellen Road, created more chances against us, but we created less and we had less forward passes. It was much more conservative from us, which kind of lined up with the scorelines we were getting. So it was nice to go into the Stoke game knowing that that was the slippery bump last season when Fracca decided to rotate the squad and it didn't work. Nice to get past that one. They're always a tricky one. From what we could see of the game through the fog, it's still a really good performance. Nice to get 2 goals. Joe Piro doing really coming into some form at the moment. Even when he doesn't do an awful lot else in the game, he's involved in the goals. Like even today, getting the assist coming off the bench and 2 goals the previous game as well. So that was a brilliant one to get, especially against Stoke. And then today, exactly what Craig said, scrappy game, really sloppy game and physical game. It was a battle and we had to win that. This time last year, we draw that 0-0 or we lose 1-0, so there's a definite step forward for me in that, but it's been a good win considering the circumstances tonight. And you take the 3 points, you've got 2 wins on the road. Now you've got a 2 point gap to Sheffield United, which is the start, hopefully, of us coming into our better form like we did this time last year.
Yeah, going back to the Stoke game, I did say beforehand that we'd lose that game. Just solely based on time of the year. We don't tend to do well over Christmas anyway. And also looking back on the year beforehand as well, like you've just alluded to it. But yeah, great performances from what we saw. Link up play from Bogle and James on that right hand side is definitely coming into shape. You can see that it's working. But yeah, the Oxford game as well. I mean, who stood out for you? So obviously, I tend to look at who scored for player ratings. I
Yeah.
use that as a base of when we do our player ratings. Obviously, our player ratings tend to be higher than what they are. So rarely do we
Yeah.
agree with it because it's all stats based. Who stood out for you in that game? Obviously, Solomon got 2 assists and the fourth goal. I'll start with you, Jay.
I thought Dan James was excellent. He's probably been our best player from a contribution perspective all season. He's been phenomenal this year. Absolute workhorse for us. I thought he was excellent. And you kind of mentioned partnerships, and that partnership on the right hand side between Bogle and James is definitely coming into its own. The two of them have a really good understanding. Bogle lets James go early and get in behind teams, and lets him be really, really effective. That he needs that. He was excellent. I think Manor Solomon, now that he's got a run of games going, is starting to show the player we were actually bringing in. The 6 goal involvements, considering the lack of starts that he's had so far this season, is a really impressive number. And I thought he was really, really good in that game. And again, kind of similar to Joe Piro, there's times in a match where he doesn't do an awful lot, But if there's a ball bouncing around the box, he's usually in there somewhere trying to get a tap in or a toe on the end of it. So I thought they were both very, very good. I think Aronson's been really good in the last 2 games, specifically the last 2, but you get the normal work rate out of him and everything else, but he's now starting to put the ball in the back of the net and get a couple of assists as well. So I thought he was really good. The 3 behind Piro, I thought were probably our standard, but Bogle for me had a cracking game as well.
Yeah, I agree. Craig, what about you, mate?
Yeah, I think I gave James man of the match for that. But yeah, it was a toss up because there weren't much between him and Solomon for me in that. Solomon, like Jay said, that over the past few games, Solomon's coming into his own, which is something we've talked about before. That when he gets a run of games, he gets his fitness back. He's a level above this league, but you can tell the quality, and it showed in tonight's game for me because I was talking about it all the time. That you know, you bring a player like that on, and the quality is completely different. It shows through, and yeah, he's. I think he's going to become some important player for us. But yeah, James Bogle, they're all fantastic against Oxford.
Yeah, obviously you got to include rotation as well, which then leads to the Stoke game when Tanaka came out, Ampadu came in, slotted in well, which you expect him to do as well. One that stood out to me in the Stoke game, though, again, not just solely based on stats as well, but Rothwell I thought stood out massively in that game because obviously, if you look at the two in midfield between Rothwell and Tanaka, post 3 games ago, you probably would have said, right, Rothwell's the one that's going to lose his space, unless you put one of them as the number 10 role, which we've discussed many times before, putting Rothwell as number 10, but he doesn't seem to want to drop Aronson at the moment, which is fine. I mean, he's scoring and assisting. His work rate's brilliant. It's just sometimes decision making and the fact that he's lost the ball, I think the most amount of time in the league, or especially for a Leeds player. I think it was 3 that he lost today, which again, that's better than his average.
It is.
So, I mean, normally he gets about 6 to 8 dispossessed balls. That's not even including like misplaced passes or anything like that. But even going back to today's game, it's like 4 players stood out for me as who you'd pick. Obviously, Aronson got the goal. Yes, he should have scored a couple, maybe. I think one of them I was a little bit harsh on him when it was the bounce. When he swung his foot out, it just bounced awkwardly for him. So I'm going to let him off for that. But he had another shot later on that he should have scored. But then you've also had Sam Byam as well, which was playing his 200th league game, which I thought stood out. And then you've got Nonto as well, which me and Craig do disagree with a lot on Nonto. I'm gonna let you two speak about Nonto today. What did you think about him? Do you both think that he had a good or not so good game?
I'll
let Craig go first.
Do you want me to go first? Right. Well,
You go then.
It frustrates me so much because I think there's potential in him. Definitely got potential, but he's not the player yet that people think he is. I don't see it. He's slow. It's slow at making decisions, and it slows the game down. This is the difference between when James is playing in his position. It's direct, it's forward, and he runs in them positions. Nonto holds the ball up and then looks for. He's better when he's got space in front of him. If he's not got that space in front of him, he comes back, and the play goes back then, and it stops the attack sometimes. Yeah, he's just he has the flashes in games where he might, he can do something, but it's not consistent enough for me.
Yeah, I would agree with most of that, pretty much all of that. Today specifically, frustrating is probably the best word because you're led to believe there's this really high ceiling, and at the moment, I don't see him hitting that ceiling or getting close to it. Even I don't see a Premier League footballer right now. I don't see Premier League teams knocking Leeds' door down to bring him in. I don't know what he would bring, and I think he started the season really, really well. He was racking up goals and assists. His involvement was good. He was playing on his weaker side, but yet he was producing more than he does when he's on his stronger side, and it was all going really well for him. And then he just goes off the boil a little bit. And like Craig said, there's just elements of his game that really frustrate me. Today, his passing. His passing is always either lacking a little bit of power and is left short behind a player, or he overhits it and runs out of play, and the players are trying to catch up with it. And it's like, I can see what you're trying to do, but the execution's not where it should be. He checks back on himself an awful lot. So if you look at when Bogle and James play on the same side, Bogle will pick the ball up. James will be just just out over the halfway line, and Bogle will pop the ball over him into space for James to run after him. If you look at the first half, and especially the first 20 minutes before Farkas switched him and Ramazani really early in the first half, Bogle and Nanto were on top of each other. So every time Bogle got the ball, Willie Nanto was a yard away from him. I was like, well, I can't give you the ball now because you're too close to me. And there's all this space in front of you, and you're coming towards me instead of running into the space. So that's frustrating. He doesn't release the ball often enough or in the right times. He overcarries it at times and runs into trouble when there's obvious passes on. And a lot of this probably should be caveated by saying he's a kid. He's very young. He's probably played way more minutes, and the minutes suggest he's a more experienced player than he actually is in terms of his age. So you get a bit of immaturity with him, and those decision-making things are very, very much a young person's problem. And as he gets older and more experienced, they'll fall out of his game. And I think the potential is still there for Willie, but right now, and with the pressure that's on Leeds United to get out of this division this year, I think he's probably fourth choice winger. I think Ramazani's probably ahead of him. I think Dan James is miles ahead of him right now. And I think Manor Solomon is ahead of him. And I think today when you saw the wingers switched, there was a big difference, and all of a sudden Leeds were flying forward again, and it's a big difference. So I've been saying for ages I want to see Willie in the 10, not because of any major reason that Aronson's doing anything wrong in there, but he's got a cracking shot with both his feet. He's good when he's facing the goal. He's got a nice little tricky pass when it's tight areas. I think all that stuff, we'd see some really good stuff out of him. And I think it also needs to be remembered as well. Leeds bought him as a striker. He was never bought as a winger. He was bought in the same window as the day we nearly had Cody Gakpo and Bamba Dieng, and then we ended up with Nanto instead. So he was brought in as a number 9. And since he's been at Leeds, he's never played in the 9, except for one game against Cardiff at the first game last season. And he was excellent in that game. And you look at it this season, he's out on the wing, he's on the right side, the left side. And when he goes and plays for Italy, they play him as a 10 or a striker in his and he's better and he scores goals. So I don't think he's found his niche in Leeds necessarily exactly where he should be. But I think when he is in it, there's a lot more expected of him. And there are areas of his game that he needs to improve if he wants to be a main starter, or if he's really keen to get that Premier League move with Leeds or without Leeds, then he needs to do an awful lot more. But today being taken off, he looked annoyed getting taken off again today. He sulks a bit, and that always winds me up. I hate seeing a player doing this when they're getting taken off. It's like you've no arguments today. You weren't good enough today. You were taken off for a reason. So yeah, there's little things like that, but they're all immaturity things, and I think they all go away with time.
I think he thinks he's better than what he is as well. I think he's got this notion in his head that he's actually a better player than what he is. But like you say about them misplaced passes, he played Ramazani in today. He could have played him through on goal, and he pushed him wide because he played, and he had all the time in the world to play that ball. He's very, very frustrating. But I keep telling you this, don't I, Mike? And I say it over and over again. But in today's game, I was saying on 70 minutes, when that substitution gets made, when Dan James and Solomon come on, and I know Ramazani were unlucky because he were having a pretty decent game, but you took them wingers off. For me, they were playing too central. There were no width. And when James and Solomon are on, that width is created, so you can get that overload. With them, there's no overload because you got Byam and Bogle playing too far forward, and there's and it's but yeah, you saw the huge difference. I said on 70 minutes when they come on, we'll create something now. This is where you see chances created, and the quality showed.
Yeah, you saw it straight away. Solomon picks up the ball, crosses over to James.
Yeah,
it was straight at the keeper, and then again, Bogle does that pass over to James a few times when he's looking and he sees him running. He's like, right, I'm going to try and lob it over now. And you don't see that. I mean, Ramazani's got the pace, but he likes the ball to feet. And you can see him when he's got the ball to feet, he will dribble and he will push forward. He's a lot more direct. but he comes in a lot more. So it's like inverted wingers or whatever they describe them as these days. I don't know, but he like brings it in a lot. And right, yeah, he was unlucky to come off Ramazani, but again, going back to his not necessarily bad traits, but he had one in the first minute. All he had to do was play it to the left hand side. Person was wide. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Joseph or Aronson. Was wide open, and he picked the wrong pass. Went to the right when they had 4 defenders to R2,
Yeah.
and it's like all you had to do was just lay it off, and we've got a shot.
Yeah.
But again, it's good that we've got options for different wingers that you can play on that when needs be, depending on who we're playing. We've spoken about that before with yes, Nonto. He does frustrate me as well, like when he goes looking for fouls. And if he's not on it within the first 10, 15 minutes, you know what kind of game you're going to get from him. It is just, I'm going to look for fouls. I'm going to not whinge and whine as such, but
Roll
every chance.
around a bit though.
Yeah.
Wave my arms. Yeah.
But when
Yeah.
he's on it, he's on it. And it is frustrating. He can't just think, right, the first 10 minutes haven't gone round. Let's just keep doing what I know I'm good at. And it's just goes back to that. But again, average rating had him as our second best player, which again, to the eye test, he definitely wasn't. For me, you had Ampadu, who was absolutely incredible in the centre, and then you had Sam Byram as well, pick of the bunch for me. I thought Byram so underrated.
Yeah.
Clearances, he had the most interceptions and the most tackles for us from a Leeds point of view. That was,
Yeah.
and what he does is just, yeah, it's just the fact that he's just come in and he can play left, he can play right, depending on who's out injured, and he just does a solid job.
Byram's just a solid player, isn't he? Really, he's just he gives you what he gives you like what you need from players like Nonto. He's a perfect example to look up to. Byram gives you 100% every game, whether he has a good game or not a good game. He gives you 100%, and you know it's. But like I was just thinking earlier, when you're talking about rotation, having like when Tanaka got left out and then Ampadu came in with Rothwell. I think in that midfield, you're not losing much quality because whoever comes in and goes out with that rotation, Rothwell, Ampadu, Tanaka, the quality is very little between them. You don't lose much, so you can afford to rotate that. But for me, it showed today with the wingers. The front three, you put in Joseph up front, you put in Nonto there. I don't want to say too much about Ramazani because he's not played that much, and he's not Solomon's level yet, but he's got that ceiling. But what I'm saying is, those front three, when they got replaced, the difference was massive.
That kind of brings me on to my next question then. Piro or Joseph? I know it's a well, we've got a reaction straight away, mate. So let's hear your thoughts on it.
I've come to the conclusion I don't care because if one of them isn't doing it, the other one comes off the bench and does it. So in every game where, like when Piro's starting and he's not doing great, he's bringing Joseph on in a minute. He'll change the shape. We'll get a goal, and one of the two of them will be involved in it somewhere. And then today you're looking at going, well, Joseph's doing all the donkey work. He's running around, he's pressing, he's tackling. And I thought he was okay today. And then Piro comes on and gets an assist. So even when it's not happening with one, it will happen with the other. And it's kind of a weird, unofficial, unstructured partnership. You know what I mean? Like it's like one of them will do it, and if he's not, he comes off, and the other fella comes on, and he'll do it. So between the two of them, they're still contributing. I mean, Joseph's got 5 goal contributions this year. From what it really is his breakout season, like this is his first full season being viewed as number 1 or number 2 striker, and he's really keen to make a mark, and you can see it. He's probably over trying at times to do things, but Joe Piro has just been Mr. Cool this year, and has a lot of faults to his game. His first touch is like a bus, and the ball bounces off him, usually goes up in the air every time. But when he gets in around the edge of the box and inside the box, all of a sudden his feet turn to cotton wool, and he's cushioning things and rolling in corners. So, and the pass today for Aronson's goal is a beautiful pass first time as well. So as long as they're both contributing, I don't really mind. I think it depends. We've got a really good opportunity with this squad to have horses for courses, to pick a team depending on who we're playing. And I think if we're playing against sides that play low blocks and it's tight and congested, then Joel Piro is the man you start in that game because he can do it in tight spaces in and around the box. But if you need someone to press and it's going to be slightly more open, I think Joseph's the man you go with there. And him and Aronson work really well together when they're doing a fast press. So they all have their benefits. It's just fitting them in the right game and seeing where they go. But I mean, Piro's got 14 goal involvements this year, and Joseph's got 5, so 19 between the two of them in 24 games. It's not bad.
No, it's not. So I'm a massive Piro fan. I have been since he was at Swansea. I really liked him at Swansea, and he was one of the 3 strikers that I wanted us to bring in. So I was kind of glad that we got him. Whether or not he fits our system or our style of play is another matter, because he is a poacher. He's a finisher, and we also want him to do the dirty work of closing down, and that's not his style of play. Whereas you've got Aronson and James who do it perfectly well, but then he gets sucked in too deep because he wants the ball, and then when we've got the ball that comes in, he's nowhere to be seen. Especially when we break and we catch them down like fast, like we did against Oxford with Solomon when he picked up the ball and he ran. I think he did lay in to Aronson. Yeah, it was when he picked up the ball, pass it to Aronson, and you think, right, if Piro's there, that's where he should be. But because they had the ball when he dropped deep, it was to somebody else. Thankfully, we scored, but there have been other times when we passed it to, say, Joseph or James or Aronson even, and they've just completely missed the shot because it's not Piro, and it's that part is frustrating for me. But Craig, anything else that stood out for you from the last 3 games?
Say again.
Anything that stood out to you from the last 3 games?
I think Solomon's contribution for me in the last 3 games has been, you can see this player that is coming since he started it in that form. We've played better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything from you, Jer?
It's a hell of a decision for Farke to make with the winger options that he's got. But I mean, if you're a fullback or a manager at any other team and you think 60 minutes in or 70 minutes in, we've done a great job, we've kept our wingers quiet, and then the other two come on, you're like, for God's sake, like what? Like, give me a break here. I'd say most fullbacks are sweating watching Dan James come off the bench and like, great, last 10 minutes of the game, I'm knackered, I'm gonna have to run now after this fella. So I think the wingers have been phenomenal for Leeds. I think they've got their involvement is the bulk of Leeds' goals this season has come either from or through the wingers, which is brilliant. And they've all played their part. The centre of midfield is going to be interesting for me. I thought it was different today. It was I get what Farke was doing today with Ampadu in there because we've been caught on counter-attacks away from home and conceded there, and Ampadu sweeps up really well in there. But Tanaka was strange today. I don't know if you guys thought the same. I looked at the game and I thought every time Sam Byam goes forward, Tanaka goes in left back. And now there's nobody in the middle of the park, and Aronson has to come all the way into the middle to get the ball, and he's coming 20 yards deeper. And then Joseph has to drop 20 yards deeper to get involved in the next phase of it. And then when it does go to Byam or Bogle, who are the highest men we have on the pitch, there's nobody in the box. There's no one near the edge of the box. So I thought it was a strange one today, the middle of the park. I didn't love it. I like Joe Rothwell. I like what he gives us in the middle of the park. I like that when the tempo's flat or it's a bit slow, he'll pick up the ball and drive into space and get us going again. And he lifts the tempo and he lifts the crowd a little bit. I like him in there with Tanaka. I'm not sure Tanaka and Ampadu is going to be the most sexy, attractive midfield pairing we're going to see this year. Although I did think today with Ampadu being in there, he would be the holding player and we'd see Tanaka push on more, and that didn't happen. So that's going to be interesting to see what Farke does. Does he have the balls to rest his captain or drop his captain for the other two if they're playing well together? And I don't think he does, but we'll have to wait and see how that one pans out. But I think what we've seen this year with this squad, and especially over the last couple of games, is the partnerships are starting to click. All of a sudden, it's starting, and Farke's sides always take a while to get going. I think it takes them roughly, if you look over his time at Norwich and Gladbach, it's about 10 games before his teams actually start to move and start to produce results, which is probably a bit too long if we're going to go into the Premier League. That needs to be fixed a bit. But once they're moving, I mean, you look through the team, you've got Jayden Bogle and Dan James' partnership is excellent. They're smooth as anything over on that side of the pitch. You trust the two of them, even defensively. Rothwell and Tanaka in the middle of the park. I was loving watching what they were doing from an attacking point of view. I really enjoyed that. Joe Roden and Pascal Stroke today, phenomenal again. Stroke was like a Rolls Royce today, back to his best stuff was today. I thought he was excellent. And then you have Aronson and Piro who have a lovely understanding between each other as well, working off each other. So you're starting to see all these little partnerships click. And last season, when we went on a really good run, it was the same. All of a sudden, people just started to find each other. There was a rhythm to the team. There was a rhythm to the moves. And if you look at the goal we scored today, that's a phenomenal goal. Like the movement off the ball, Aronson's third man run, like he knows he's not getting the ball, but he makes the run into space anyway, and then he finds himself in a pocket, and Piro picks him out. So there's a lot of really good stuff right now. Moving on into the rest of the year, I'd like to see this version of Leeds continue. I don't want to see Faraka just pull them back a little bit. I'd like to see him trust this squad and trust this team a little bit more and let them go and let them play. I said the same thing about Southgate in the World Cup in England. I'm Irish, so I've no skin in the game watching England playing. But I remember saying the same thing. You've got one of the most talented bunch of players. Let them go and play. Let them destroy teams. And I don't think we've hit fourth or fifth gear yet this year. Right? I think we're building to it, but I don't think when we do hit it, God help the team we come up against. But the last 3 games are starting to show there's momentum there.
Yeah, he's notorious as well for second half of the season. Farke, he's a notorious second half season where he starts picking up his points. So if that's history is to go by, we should have a really comfortable second half. But yeah, I want to give a mention though to we've been talking about like the when you're saying about Pro playing the passing to Aronson. I want to give a mention out to Solomon for me made that goal.
Yeah,
because
again,
the turn and the pass to Piro was fantastic. Like it's I just want to give him some credit for that because a lot of people pass that by, but he made that goal. Just like I said the other day, was it against Preston when we drew one apiece where it was Solomon that passed it out wide to James. He was the one that made that, and that's where the quality is coming through.
It's football intelligence, isn't it?
Of like different players. It's the interchange of players, like the link up play between everybody. But I've already said it before many times on here with the link up play when we've got the ball, we drop to a back 2, and then one of the midfielders will drop back. And I think, like you said, that Tanaka went to left back. I think they may have got confused as to who was dropping back.
Yeah.
So it was then when we've got the ball and we're attacking, everybody dropped, and I'm like, no, just one of you drop, and then the other one goes, taking turns even, which is what Rothwell does really, really well. He will drop when Tanaka's got the ball and he'll carry it. Or we saw it with Joe Rodon when they push forward, drop back. Don't just everybody drop back because then we're missing a man when we're attacking, and it's not as fluid as what it should be. But
well, it's usually when it's Tanaka and Rothwell, it's usually Tanaka that drops into the middle of the centre backs.
Yeah.
And because Ampadu does that job, naturally, Tanaka's lost. Like it's like he's lost on where to go. But I think today we did miss today that I noticed was the Rothwell set pieces. We missed Rothwell's dead ball corners and delivery. You could see the massive difference in the quality that's coming in.
You could see what Ramazani wanted to do, but he was just over hitting them a lot.
Yeah,
and it wasn't just like 1 or 2 times. It was pretty much every time he took it. Which then in the second half we then end up doing short corners because it just wasn't working, which is good. And we've now got a 3-point gap between third place as Burnley have drawn to Borough, which is just the perfect week, really, if you think about it. But yeah, back to these, obviously, 24 games
of the
played
top 8
already.
sides this weekend, Leeds are the only team to win.
Yeah.
Everyone else has dropped points. Top 8.
Yeah, which was inevitable. Like this is what I've been thinking. All the past month or so, people all I've is listened to people saying, that Sheffield United are this, Burnley this. We're not going to do this. We're not going to because they've not all played each other yet, and we've played all those teams, and around this time of year, all the fixtures have gone. We had the best running relatively, because they all had to play each other, so points were going to get dropped. And
Sheffield United have a horrible run of games right now. I mean, they've lost 2-0 to Burnley. That was the first tough game they had.
Yeah.
Then they drew 1-1 with West Brom today. They've got to go away to Sunderland next, and then away to Watford, and they're not easy games. So they're coming to a really tricky patch that they could drop away again. And
I've always been confident that we're going to steadily get there because of the fixtures. It's just that we've played all the difficult fixtures first. So it will.
But even if you look at our shots, 24 games, we scored 44 goals, which is the most in the league. Our XG is 48.25, so we're underperforming in that sense. But we still had 404 shots altogether, and that's average of 16.8 shots per game. So we are creating chances. So this whole myth that we don't play attacking football or attractive football, it is a myth, because what I'm seeing is that we are creating chances, and it may not be clear-cut chances like we did under Bielsa, say, but for me, it's more controlled in how we attack. It's not just gung-ho, everybody just off you go, attack. Doesn't matter if we get caught on the counter-attack because we'll score more than you. It's more, I can't think of the exact word, but it's more, it's just more structured.
Yeah. Well, this is what I keep saying, isn't it, about the problem for Leeds is not the way that we play, not the style of play. It's the conversion rate. We create the chances to score every game. You look at the statistics. We create more than the other team. So statistically, we should be beating every team. We just don't convert those chances. And if we did, I mean, imagine where we'd be if we converted those chances. We just don't convert them, but it's getting better. It's getting better as time goes on, and you can't win every game. So we
will lose games this year. Like, we are going to still drop points this year. I mean, I think I'll be honest. Like, I've never loved Daniel Farke's style of football. It's not what I enjoy watching, because it as you said, it's more structured. It's organized. He's got a formula nearly for how he likes to play. And there was games this year. The boring thing is interesting, because I did make that point earlier on this year. I said there was one game in particular, Bristol City. It was my stag, and I started my stag off with that game. I was like, what a start to the day that was. And it was probably the most boring game of football I've watched all year. And what I've said to people is, just because someone says a game is boring, that doesn't mean they think every single game is boring. Like, there are differences. But at times this year, we looked a bit blunt. And even when we did create some chances, they're half chances or they're panic moves. But I think, again, as Craig said, the longer the season is going on, they're becoming more clear cut. The understanding between the players is getting better. Daniel Farke always takes his time to trust his squads. I think we saw last year with his bench, he didn't trust that bench last year because he barely ever used anybody on it. Where this year, he's a little bit more trusting, and he's, could still loosen the reins a little bit with the substitutions as well and be a bit earlier. But at the moment, they're making an impact. But yeah, I haven't always loved his style of football, but it's effective. And in the Championship, we just need to be effective. And then if we do go to the Premier League, he has that promise from the 49ers that they're going to back him in the Premier League. So get us there, and we'll judge it next season. But I do think that we can play more expansive football. I do think we can play more attacking football. I still think that that's there. But he's very much, and he's kind of obsessed with his 2 points per game. He talks about it so much. And there's games away from home where you're looking at it. Even today at 0-0, I was saying, I don't think Farke could be too upset with this, because it's a point away, 3 at home, 2 points per game over a season, gets you promoted. He keeps saying that same thing. Where I think some other managers would be like, no, we go and win. We go and win. Where Farke's like, we don't need to win. We just need to not lose here. And that's what's important. So we'll play our game. And if we win, we win. Great. If we don't, just don't lose. So that's where my issues tend to be with Farke. But as I've been saying to people most of the year, you cannot like his style of play and still not want him sacked, because he's been in the top 2 most of the season. So how do you sack a manager? I think I said earlier on, the question in the first half of the season was always, if you were going to do that with Farke, when is too early and when is too late? And then you got to figure out in the middle, is it worth doing it at all? Is there anybody better? And I don't think there is at this level. I really don't think there's anyone who knows what he's doing. He's so formulaic about this, and he can back it up with stats from his time at Norwich and even last season with us and go, yeah, look at it. I told you, we do this, we hit that total. And he's hit it pretty much every single time.
Yeah.
And outside of the circumstances of last season, he should go up. And then this season, we should go up again. But it's the tricky spell for me will be the March international break, because the last 3 years that break has caused us nothing but problems afterwards. So as long as we're in a good position coming into that, if we're smart in January and make a couple of smart signings, because I think a few will go, then I think we could be okay. But the January is going to be key to that, because we're going to need a little bit more depth at centre back, and I think we need another option for 10 just to rest Brendan sometimes, because he's played a lot of football.
I was just about to touch on that before we finish. When you just mentioned about the transfer market, you've already said about backup. Is there any, obviously, there's apparently rumours that Bamford's off and stuff. Apparently, he said his last goodbyes today. Whether or not that's true or not, I didn't see the end of it. Again, it's just what I've seen online. Who would you, obviously, Firpo's contract runs out at the end of the season as well. Would you offer, first of all, would you offer Firpo a new contract? Yes or no? I'll go to Craig, but you've said no. Okay, that's fine.
No.
That's fine. Craig, what are you going to say for Firpo? Would you offer him a new contract or not?
I think they have offered him a new contract, haven't they? He's just not signed it yet, and I don't think I personally don't think he will. I think he'll be in the summer. He'll be off back to Spain, warmer climates, and because I think that he's very, very good in the Championship. In the Premier League, he's not Premier League.
I think in the Championship, we get to see what he's good at, which is going forward and creating attacks, and he gets the time and space. He's not exposed defensively. I think in the Premier League, he's up against top-class wingers every single week, and I think he gets exposed defensively. But I think it's a nice swan song for him this season. If we do go up, he gets to have 2 really good seasons with Leeds, wave goodbye to the crowd, be a bit of a hero walking away, job done, back to Spain, to the warm weather, back to Betis, and enjoy the rest of your career.
Yeah.
I think Leeds would need to get a better left back, regardless of whether they kept him or not in the Premier League. Same with the right-hand side. We've got very good attacking fullbacks. We're going to need very good defensive fullbacks in the Premier League, because it's not going to be like this year. It's not going to be free-flowing attacking football. No. We are going to be under the pressure an awful lot more. We're going to need to be good defensively. So I think they're 2 areas they look at in the summer. I don't think they need to look at it just yet. I think Firpo's fine. You've got Schmidt there, who at some point Farke will give him a crack. Farke tells us that Byam can't play 2 games in a row. He's played 5 in a row. And Schmidt's sitting there waving at him going, "Any chance of a game, lads." So I think Schmidt will come in at some point, and I think we're okay there. I think we're okay with Byam covering the 2 boys either side in the meantime. I think the priority needs to be a centre-back to have cover. I don't know what the Volper situation is. There's possibly another operation on his knee, or is this the, the PR before he heads off to Salzburg?
I'm going, basically,
I know my personal views on that. I think he's off.
Yeah, I think he's off.
Yeah.
I think Salzburg is off.
But then you have got Ampadu that can play there as well. So Ampadu can drop back, and then you can then go for...
You got Gillibogi as well.
He can play in there as well,
Yeah. I mean, Tanaka potentially obviously won't do as good as job, but he can slot in there even if it's a game instead of going out spending money.
Yeah.
I mean, the main person for me is if we do get rid of Bamford and Joffrey leaves, which I don't mind Joffrey leaving at all on loan, get someone in, even if they know they're going to be on the bench, just for cover reasons. Apart from that, like you said, a number 10.
Yeah, we need someone decent, I think, up in that 10 role. That's the problem is in January is signing someone that you've got to sign someone that's got potential to be Premier League level, or you get them on loan from Premier League level, because a lot of Leeds players, as good as what they are, I have this thing of that you've got Championship level players, and then you've got Premier League players, and you've got players that are somewhere in between, like Firpo, and I would put Nonto in that bracket as well. He's probably good enough for Championship, maybe a bit, on his day, he's too good for Championship, but he's not Premier League yet. So you've got this middle ground where and I think there's a lot of players in that team that are in that bracket.
Similar to Leicester and Southampton and Ipswich, if you look at them in the Premier League this year, too good for the Championship, not good enough for the Premier League. They're that middle bit stuck in the middle where there's no league for them to really playing.
Yeah,
I think Leeds need we'll look at the whole spine of that team come the summer. I think they'll look at a goalkeeper in the summer. I think they'll look at a centre back. I think they'll look at another option midfield because Rothwell's only on loan, and they'll probably want somebody better in the Premier League. And then they'll probably look at the 10 and the 9 again as well. But like to what you said, Michael, if it's a case that Nanto and Bamford are going, Farkas already said no one leaves unless someone comes in first.
Yeah.
So he wants the replacement in before. I think he doesn't want to see the number 10 situation happen from the summer. Give me him first, then players can leave. We'll talk about it then. So, and I reckon I want Paddy Bamford to go off and play football. Same with Joffrey. There's no point sitting on the bench picking up a salary looking miserable. Go and play football. Go and enjoy yourself. You're in your 30s. You've got something to offer. Go and do it somewhere where you can go and play football. You've done enough for us as it is anyway. I know he's a polarizing figure, but he was very good for us for a very long amount of time. Yeah. He was the number one we had up front. So he's done his time. He's added to this stack of players that have been broken since Bielsa left. So, you've hung on longer than the rest of them. You've done your time. Off you go. Joffrey, I feel really sorry for. I like Joffrey. I've always liked him, but he's not part of Farkas' plans. He doesn't fit the system, and there's so much competition in all the positions he plays in. So, and he's not better than the options that are there. Go play some football as well, get some form, and then Leeds bring in a different profile of striker than we've currently got. So when we do get to the games where it's a low block and we can't break somebody down, you can bring on somebody else up front who changes the style of play a little bit. And that's what I think Leeds need to look at. Not necessarily bodies, but bodies that change the way we play in different circumstances so that we're prepared for those opportunities when they happen.
Yeah, I think Joffrey deserves to go play football. I think he needs it for his career because he has so much potential, but he needs to be in the right environment. And yeah, I think it's a tough one because I don't think we'll look for players. I don't think we'll look to sign many players permanently. I think it's either going to be a loan, and I think at most, I've said this before, and I've just got a feeling we'll sign Joe Rothwell just for on a permanent, just for like a year or two, because he can play Premier League. So it's I think we'll end up signing him permanent because he's not getting the game time, and that might be one of the signings for us in January or maybe in the summer. I don't know, but yeah, I can't see it because I think they've got one eye on if we do get promoted. You don't want to be shipping up. You don't want to be stuck with players that
Yeah.
So I think
as you say, unless you can bring in somebody now for next year as well, which is really tough to do. And it'll probably cost you more now than it will in the summer. So it's getting even when Emi Buendia being linked, my brother's a massive Aston Villa fan, and I was speaking to him at the weekend, and he said it works perfectly for everybody if Buendia goes to Leeds on loan. Yeah. But he said the problem is going to be will Leeds play him, and I went probably not, because he's not fit enough. So he'd probably be sitting on the bench for a couple of weeks until Parker gets him up to speed, and that's not what Villa want. Villa want them playing games, so he'll go to Middlesbrough, Sheffield United instead. He'll get games there. So it's a strange one. Like you're bringing in a player who's played 86 minutes of football this season, and that's probably not what you want, even though he's a good player.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see Buendia happening at all. I've thought about it. I'm like, minutes, especially like with Farke, he wants everyone match fitness. That's probably why Smith maybe hasn't played. Obviously, he had hernia as well. He played a few minutes. Again, could have argued as well. He's not played that many games for us. Obviously, first player in history to play 8 games in a row in his debut season and won 8 games in a row. I mean, yeah, fair enough. He's only played probably about 25 minutes combined, but still, it's a new record set. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there. Jay, thank you for joining. It has been a pleasure. Craig, as always, mate, it has been a pleasure to have you on. Jay, where can people find you?
Leeds United The View on YouTube, X and Blue Square on all the socials. But yeah, Leeds United The View.
No worries. Guys, thank you all for listening, as always. Cheers, guys.
Welcome.